Hi. I'm not really used to using microphone. Okay, cool. So nice to have you here all. I've prepared something. This is my mini exhibition, and I'm traveling around with my. I call her my baby because it's kind of. I was working on it for 9 months, so it felt like this. Woo! Yeah, and I will talk now for a while, but not that much because I would like to give more space for the discussion and also for questions, and and also sometimes when I'm on events I kind of feel strange because I'm just reading stuff. You know, I'm not a black person born in the US in the 20s. So, I mean, I can also, I can talk about my experiences, but still, I'm just reading stuff and I can just tell you what my sources give away. So, yeah, I try to make it short, so we have enough time to discuss. So, I would like to start with the history. I mean, also about the history, I don't want to talk that much because I already wrote it down there. So if you're interested and you didn't have time to read, then maybe later you can take your time to read a bit. And also if you're interested in one topic especially, you just can scan the QR codes. And then you are linked to documentaries or interviews with, I don't know, I think Dawn Hampton, there is an interview linked, which is like 2 hours. Because Dawn Hampton can talk and talk and talk. Norman Miller also. So. Yeah. So if you are interested, that's not that much space. So I want to really give you a lot of information. You can also check the, I also gave my sources I work with, so you can also check these sources. Yeah, so but to take a brief look into the history, I would like to start nearly like at the ending of slavery, so in 1865, but the circumstances for black people were not really better than before because just a few years after the official ending of slavery, the US government established the Jim Crow laws, which kept the segregation between black and white in practice. So black people had their own schools or park banks, areas or bathrooms or whatever. We all know the story of that black people had to sit in the back of the bus and had to give away their seat if a white person comes into the bus, you know. So there was still a segregation between black and white, and like with the motto of separate but equal, black people were discriminated because they said it's equal, but it wasn't really equal because the financial, how you say, the money they put in the black places or spaces were less than for the white spaces. So there was still this discrimination. And if we think about places black people could go, there were not really a lot of ones. So at least they had the Savoy Ballroom. We all know it. Where we are? Like there. So black people could at least go there, and also the prices at the Savoy were really low. So it was also financially possible to have somewhere, a place to meet and connect. So this had a really big impact for the black community to have at least one place where they can feel safe, where they can express themselves, you know, because that's what it is about in Lindy Hop. Expressing yourself when there is no place to go, you know. And and also, like Lindy Hop, or also other dances, black dances, to that time, but also Lindy Hop was developed there, and it was developed by black people, but also the white audience was really interested in this culture because it was cool, and so they wanted to implement it also in films, but still it had some racist structures, because there was this ambivalence or this inner conflict of we would like to show these talented dancers, but still in a way that the white audience don't feel too attacked by these talented black people. So they were, for example, in Halsepoppen, they were shown in workwear. So so this transports the message, okay, these black people, they are talented, they're really cool, but they don't really can rise up in their class. So we show there in workwear, you know? And also when we have a look on the dancing scene in A Day at the Races, it's horrible. I don't know if everyone has seen the sequence from A Day at the Races. If not, scan the QR code, you are linked to the video. So there are, for example, there are 3 men trying to be part of the dancing Lindy community while blackfacing. So they just go under a train, take some oil, putting it in their face, and then being totally having self-esteem, being like, okay, now we can go, just in the middle of the dancing crew and dancing totally stupidly like this. So yeah, we can still see that they try to kind of show the talent, but still in that funny way, so the white audience didn't feel attacked. And then I thought, why I'm talking about it? Because it's easy to say it's in the past. I mean, Halsepoppen is from 1937. No, 41, sorry, and A Day at the Races is 1937, yes. And so it's easy now to say we didn't grow up with these films. I haven't seen them as a child, so it's easy just to push it in the past. But if it's about these racist stereotypes in films, we still can find them today in films we all grew up with. So that's also a bit my thing, because I'm working at the university and doing some studies about diversity in books for children and also about racism in books for children. And so if we have a look, for example, on Dumbo, the elephant, you know, there are 3 crows in the film. And the leader of the Crow gang is called Jim. His name is Jim Crow. And I mean, at least Dumbo, we all know this movie. We all grew up with, you know. Or if we look at the Jungle Book, in the original film, King Louis has an Afro-American accent. So this gives a total different meaning to the song, I Want to Be Like You. And the funny thing is that at the beginning, the filmmakers asked Louis Armstrong to sing the song. And Louis Armstrong was like, hell no, that's so racist, I won't do that. And then they asked Louis Prima, because also a lot of people think that Louis Armstrong sang the song. That's not true. it was Luis Prima, a white Italian man, who sang the song. You know, so I mean that's a small excursus, but I think it's important to have in mind that's not a problem in the past. It's now, you know, it's still now, and it's still in books for children or in movies that we can find racist stereotypes. For example, also I think at least here everyone knows Pippi Longstrump and the colonial history in Pippi, and also like when you go in the origin, the N-word, and we still have books where it's written like this, you know? So don't push it in the past. That's important. Don't push it in the past. It's now. But okay, excursus over. Yeah, so in the middle of the 1960s, the Jim Crow laws were cancelled officially. So black people were equal by law, they said. But still, we can find racist structures in the society. For example, when it's about that black people try to find a flat, or if they try to find a job, maybe they get the temporary contract, or just a part-time job, or the less paid job. Maybe when it's also about the contact with police. We have seen it in the US, but I also made some research, and at least in Germany, I could also find a few cases where black people were killed by the police. Maybe I ask you later if you also have Danish examples. Yeah, so there is still this structure, because we still have these images in mind. Because at least as children, we are really open, and so we really take what we get. And if we get Pippi Longstrump, if we get Dumbo, if we get the Jungle Book, it just comes in our mind, so it's sometimes not really like obvious, these racist structures, but they are there, you know. So yeah. So this is the whole history thing. But like, if you are interested, have a look here, scan the QR codes, watch documentaries. It's really interesting. So yeah, but I would like also to transfer it a bit more to the Lindy Hop scene for now, because I mean we don't have these signs anymore where it was written like whites only, as we had it in the Jim Crow laws in the US, you know. And then I thought, yeah, but why our scene seems to be so exclusive, you know? And then I thought about the revival of Lindy Hop, because this is also a topic people should talk about, because like the big story we all know is that in the 80s Lindy Hop was revived by the Swedish people. Yeah, sorry, I'm always making jokes of Swedish people, sorry.
It's a very Danish thing to do.
Yeah, but like these people who revived the dance, they were all white. Although they learned it from the oldies who were all black, but like the revivers were all white. And maybe this is one of the reasons why we can't find so many black people, because you are kind of in your space and then you are linking to people who are in your space. So maybe this could be one of the reasons why we can't find so many black people. But like this couldn't be the only thing. But then I also thought about two different things. First of all, kind of a personal note. I grew up with my brothers. We grew up in a small town in Germany, and we were always the only black persons. And we were always surrounded by white, so I was totally used to it. And also, when I come into new communities, it's normal for me to be the only black person. I don't really feel uncomfortable with that because I'm totally used to it. And so also when I came to the Lindy community, I didn't feel strange about being the only black person. It was normal for me. And just after I started to travel a bit, I started to look after black people, or especially black women, but that's my thing. So yeah, but I couldn't really find some. Also, when I was looking at the teachers, the international teachers, it was kind of hard to find blacks, and yeah, at some point I felt kind of strange. And then I thought about, like, how would a person feel who is a black person, who is used to be surrounded by black people, you know, being part of a black community, to have this black support, this black energy, because I also know that. And if you are used to be in this black community, then maybe when you come to a Lindy event where just white people appear, not sure if this person would stay, because it's somehow hard to explain, but there is this kind of connection between black people. So you're always looking for people who are similar to you, where, like, people where you know, okay, I can go to them and they will introduce me in the scene and stuff. So, and if you can't find them, then you just leave, maybe, you know? So this could also be an aspect why we can't find that many black people in our scene, because there's just no connection. Yeah, and the second thing I was thinking about is a financial point, because like always in cultural appropriation, it's mostly that people who are mostly excluded from the society try to cope with these circumstances. And then there is a culture going on, you know? And then it's getting bigger and bigger, and it's getting cool. And then the white community is also attentive for that. It's taking it and making money out of it. So that's the big problem. Who is earning money with it? And then, how I said before, maybe a black person can't find a job, or didn't get the job they wanted, or the temporary contract. So, and then they don't have the financial background to participate in our scene. Because if we think about, like, I mean, coming in our scene is kind of easy because mostly the tasters and stuff are for free. But then staying in the scene is kind of hard, because then you have to pay the classes, and we all know Lindy Hop not lives from classes, hopefully. So you should go to parties, you should go to festivals, and then it's getting more and more expensive. So this is also a point which is really, really hard. Yeah. And so, I mean, of course, the financial background, you can't see it from the outside, you know, so, but maybe we can also discuss, if we are on that point, but maybe we can also discuss how we can make our scene more inclusive, because this would be the goal, I think. That would be cool. Yeah, and a third point. Sorry, I said. A third point I was thinking about was that also the image of beauty, or the ideal of beauty of the dance, changed with the change of people who are practicing and dancing and teaching this dance, you know. So I also realized that I sometimes don't really feel comfortable, or also when it's about competition, that I think like, yeah, we have these white standards. This dance is kind of whitewashed. I don't know if you know what I mean. So if we compare dances, then we have from Western societies, where we can say like the dances are more straight, more structured, you know. And then if we have a look on African or African American dances, which are more free and loose, you know, and when you have a look on videos of dancers from the 20s, 30s, 40s, you know, black dancers who are dancing Lindy Hop, it looks different to what we are doing now. And yeah, and so also I can imagine that if black people come to our scene and see how the people are dancing, they don't really feel connected somehow, because it doesn't really look like our culture. And yeah, so I think we really need more role models, different role models. So yeah, of course we have people who have a background from ballet, so they are really like straight, structured and stuff. But maybe we also need more. Is Mito here?
No, left for another dance workshop.
We need more, like Mito, hoodie swing, you know, different role models who show us, okay, it's okay if you dance like this, but it's also cool if you dance like this, and to value also these different styles of dance, and not having just this one line, how you should dance, and this is seen as beautiful. Yeah. So I really think that, because I think it matters who is teaching, it matters who is standing in front of us, it matters how and this also shapes not just the ideal of beauty, but also the connection in our scene, and yeah, really being in a community. Because sometimes I got the impression it's not a real community, and I would like to have a real community. Okay. Before I invite you, I really would like to say that you always can ask questions, also when we are here sitting in front talking a bit, but feel free really to ask questions. If you have comments, if you have informations for us, I'm always thankful for that. And just to make a short introduction why I chose to make this box is I have one rule. I'm here. You can ask me questions. You can ask us questions. But I often got the impression that people are afraid to ask something. But then, like when the panel and everything is finished, and I'm outside smoking, and then people come to me and are like, Momo, well, the whole thing with racism, I didn't really got it. Could you explain that to me again? And I'm like, no. Or 3 times I got the question. But Momo, when I was in Africa last year, I also experienced racism. So racism works both ways, yeah. And it's not cool just to blame white people for being racist. So if you really have questions and you are afraid to ask them in the crowd, you know, then please write them down, and there we have the boxes for that. And we will discuss, you can ask questions, and if we are finished, we take the box, and then we try to answer every question. So I really want that you feel seen with your questions, with your needs. And when this panel is over, I would like that the panel is over, you know? Okay, cool. I would like to invite my panelists on my side. So, first of all, we have Stine. And we have Ayub. Oh yeah, so we can share the microphone. So I would like that you introduce yourself shortly so the people know who you are. Okay.
Thank you. My name is Stine. I've been dancing in Copenhagen since 2013. I've been part of organizing classes and events in the swing shoe sport. I've been part of the Copenhagen Lindy exchange organizer group, and I teach locally in Copenhagen as well. Anything outside dance life? No. No. I studied educational research and work in a ministry.
Hello. Oh, it's a microphone. My name is Ayub, and I've been dancing Lindy Hop since 2015, in and out, because mostly what I'm doing is hip hop and house, and I've been doing that since 2009. And it's nice to see some of this in Lindy Hop swing community, because we did do similar stuff in hip hop quite a bit. So I was like, oh, nice. Yeah, and then I'm a school teacher as well.
Okay, so to make it easy to come in the discussion, I would like to start with the Lindy Hop scene, because like I just can talk for Germany or the scenes I know, and like in Berlin we have a really big scene, but still also there we have, I don't know that much black people, just a few, like a handful, and it's the capital of Germany. So also in Germany it's kind of hard to find black people on dance events, and yeah, we are, or the scene leaders are kind of struggling and find solutions how we can change it. And yeah, so I would be interested how the situation in Denmark, or at least here in Copenhagen, is. So yeah, like how diverse is the scene, or is there going on some thoughts about it? Hopefully.
So I think one of my main points is that like we have to make these conversations very local. So I'm going to speak about the Copenhagen scene, and then hope that Aarhus people who are here, you're taking this home to Aarhus, because that's a different context. The Copenhagen scene is very white. There's definitely been a change while I've been here, and also new ways of thinking. And I think also in preparing for this participation here, I realized that when I started, there were people making an effort, doing things, and I don't think they were acknowledged properly. I remember Kit, who you've been dancing with a lot, insisting on having West African dance classes and being an ambassador for West African dance classes in swing shoes. And it was, I think my perception was that it was considered like an odd idea of hers. So not necessarily, like, it wasn't acknowledged as important. We were lucky to have Norma Miller visiting at a swing shoes party years ago. It was her only visit in Denmark ever. And that was more recently, I think it was 2017 maybe-ish. And also that wasn't really, I don't think we realized the importance of that. So I think there's definitely been a development, also absolutely, what's it called, like, activated maybe by like the Black Lives Matter and the shared mental break we all took in 2020. We had a lot of time to just sit and think and discuss, and I think there's definitely things happening. And I think some of the things you mentioned, like for example, the financial barriers, I think Copenhagen dance scene is special in the sense that we have many options for free and open social dances. I think Sunday social dance, Tuesday at Student House, Monday at the Swing Shoe Social. I think all of these places are places where people can show up and come and be held. And I think if you've been in the community for a while, one of those places or all of them will carry a special meaning.
So you are more into the hip hop and house community, which is really cool because I also try to motivate everyone who is interested in Lindy Hop and dancing Lindy Hop also to experience and try hip hop and house dance, because we are so focused on Lindy Hop, which is just this small corner kind of. You know, it's this time, 20s, 30s, you know, this one dance, and but what we should have a look on the continuum of Black culture, because, like I said before, Lindy Hop was kind of coping strategy for the circumstances. The circumstances changed, and so the coping strategies changed. So yeah, I would be interested in your view as a hip hop and house dancer, how the discussion is there in the scene, and if you can see some links between Lindy and hip hop and the discussion, maybe.
Yeah. I think in general, when I compare them, and I also think about the way they kind of came up, hip hop is of course it's a much younger dance, and it had social media kind of when it was still kind of young in some sense. So that whole way of seeing the dancing earlier, we don't need to go like 100 years back to be like, okay, how does it look like? It's black and white, and there's like this film where it stops, or stuff like that. And so, therefore, I think that essence of it being a very, you should dance like this or that, or like you're always trying to look different, makes it, in some sense, already more inclusive, because people are coming and trying to be different. And I think And I think that's a big part of it when I'm thinking about when you talked about, for example, competitions and stuff, and how are you looking and stuff. Where a lot of the hip-hop competitions, you have 200 people looking the same, and you have someone maybe doing something different, and you know that person will go through just because of that kind of. But there's also that context to it. Yeah. Yeah. And I also think is maybe connected to that, and also maybe connected to hip-hop is still, I think, for a point of view of society, it's like an underground thing in some sense. Like it's not like, oh, this is a classy thing or stuff like that. So therefore, it already feels more inclusive to people who maybe don't have that much, and therefore I find the scene much more diverse. Even here in Denmark, I really enjoy going to both scenes, but it's right, when I go to a Lindy Hop, it's like, yeah, it's very bright in here, right? And in the hip-hop scene is very mixed, from Asian people to African people to Danish people, European, and so on, yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, thanks. And another thing is, for me, and sometimes I got the impression that it's good that we are talking, that we have talks like this here on festivals, and it's getting more and more. So we have more awareness of the history of the structures of our scene, and maybe also how exclusive we are. But sometimes I also think it's hard to talk about the Lindy Hop scene, especially when we don't have the basics. When we don't have the basics, when it's about the discourse about racism, because racism, that's a big word. That's a big word, it's a hard word. Always when people hear it, they are like, nope, no, not me. I mean, I just can talk for the German view, you know. People are really fast in saying no. You know, racism is Nazi. It's the Second World War. It's people who do bad things. This is racism, and so it's really easy then to say, oh no, I'm not racist because I'm not in the Second World War or something, you know? And then, but talking about day by day racism is kind of hard. Also the discourse in Germany, I don't know. Of course, there is a long history also of black people in Germany, but the discourse just really started a few years ago, and it's still kind of a corner where you can move in, but if you say, nope, I don't want that, then you just go in the other corner and you don't have problems. So I would be interested how the discussion in Denmark is about racism and awareness about the day-by-day racism, not the kind of big happenings somehow, but more the inner structures in the society, and if it's communicated, if there is a discussion somehow.
I put it here.
It's a battle. It's a battle that no one want to win.
think so. I heard the question to be like, what is the general discourse on racism and discussion on racism in Denmark?
Yes.
But I think before that, I just want to say that my general sense is that in the Copenhagen Lindy scene, it's still very much, it's very easy to say the topic of racism doesn't concern us in our dance scene. It doesn't relate to us. And I think you mentioned like, don't put it in the past with the history, but there's also the way it's presented to us is very Americanized. It's very like, this is something that happened in the US, that's also where the Lindy Hop came from, and then like there's a lot of translations before we're dancing and doing Lindy Hop in Copenhagen in 2023. So it's something that I grapple a lot with, like how to contextualize it to a Copenhagen-based setting. But it still feels like, overall speaking, like a very, it's on the nice to list rather than the need to. And I don't know how to change that because it's an uncomfortable conversation.
I know.
Yeah, I think over recent years there's more light on it in some sense. There's a little bit more of talking, not necessarily the same as action, but there's steps to it, right? Also hearing a lot of, like if I talk with friends sometimes, like, yeah, I was a family dinner, and my dad said this super racist shit, and I was like, oh, what did you tell him? I tried, you know, he's my dad, he don't understand. I'm like, okay, leave that idiot. What? No, it's my dad. And, you know, I think there's some sense of maybe a newer generation trying to take the talk a little bit. It's not necessarily the same as yeah, it's still a first step. I think that's my point on it. And we still see some stuff, and everyone in Denmark know the word hygge-racisme, which is like, you know, cozy racism. We don't mean anything mean by it, you know. It's just
Very close, like it's just a joke.
Yeah, basically, yeah. It was a joke, you know. Come on, don't be so serious. And it's a serious word we have. I'm ashamed of that, but it's very bad.
It's like it's grading the level of racism.
Yeah.
So it's like it's like it's a low level.
Yeah, because this was just for the fun of it, you know. It's not like we're not really racist, right?
Yeah.
I have black friends, so you know, so it will be stuff like this. Yeah, and also it's not even, I think, in my world, not many years back, where it would have to be a discussion about the N-word, right? And that's, so I'm thinking that should have been way earlier, and it's still rarely is a discussion every once in a while. And even actually someone wrote me, I remember, like 2 or 3 years ago, hey, I don't know if you remember me, 5 years ago at a New Year's party, we were having this discussion, and I'm so ashamed now. It was kind of nice in some sense, but I didn't remember the person, so it didn't really help me, but I was like, good for you. Now share it with other people, right? So it's not, and I think, yeah, the conversation is there, but it's not there, you know? It's not the main dish on the table. Like you said, with the corner, it's kind of the same. Like now, this is very nice that the discussion is here, right? But will it be here again in a week or 2 weeks? And that we had that same thing with the hip hop festivals. It's like, oh, it's nice we have this once a year. How do we continue? So it's not a checklist like, whew, I was anti-racist this year, right? And then you move on. Yeah, I think that was
Funny. Okay. Yeah, no. Also in Germany, we still have this discussion. Like I said, I make some research and studies about books for children, and every year there is this discussion about Pippi Longstrump and the N-word, and white men who are angry and say, no, that's culture. Whatever, I don't know. Yeah. So I don't know if people from other countries are also here, but I'm always interested in how or where are the differences in the different countries when it's about racism. because, I mean, once I talked with Joyce from France, and that was also really, really cool. It was funny because in Germany, yeah, like I said, there is this connection between black people. And so always when I see someone black on the streets, I'm greeting or I'm smiling. I don't know, I read a book where it was called The Black People Smile. I like it. So always when you see someone black, you're smiling, you're like, hey, I see you. And Joyce, I asked Joyce if this is also in France, and he said, no, he said always when he's in Germany, he's doing it, he's smiling when he's seeing black people, and he really likes this community feeling, but in France, it's not like this. So that's also really interesting. Is it in Denmark?
I think I'll just have the thing, I see a black person, and I'm curious if it's everyone, but then, I'll just do this, and the person does it back. And I have I guess it's a funny story, I don't know, maybe it's a funny story. And there was someone at my, where I was studying, I was black, and I did it, and he didn't do it back, and I was so confused. I was like, what is it? It didn't make sense, and it was so wired into my body that every time I saw it, I was like, fucking no, don't do it, because he's not into this. And then I started having thoughts, and I was like, and I was really ashamed that my thoughts went in this direction. I was like, maybe he's adopted, maybe he's, and I was so ashamed, so I went to someone that I like, because he was like, I saw it was my friend, and she talked with him. So when I was like, please, I'm having these horrible thoughts. I need to know that my prejudices are super bad. And she was like, no, he's adopted from Jutland. And I was like, he grew up there around no black people, and he was adopted. I was like, oh, fuck me. I was like, why is it like that? So I think we do have. I don't know why this story was important. Yeah, but I do think we have that. And I just remembered one thing from what we just talked about before, that in December we had a Christmas calendar show in television. And one of these shows were cancelled. It was an old show, they keep going back. And it was because it had blackface in it, people dancing. And there was a big discussion on Facebook, horrible place to go for this kind of stuff. Yeah. And so many people were like, well, there were both sides, but a lot of people was also mad that the show was canceled. And I wasn't mad, I was just amazed. I was like, how can you, in this day and age, be that blind to what this actually is? Yeah. So in that sense, I think we still have a long way to go.
And that's the next question to you, because I talked to a friend from Sweden, and she said that she always grew up with this thought of, we don't see colors, we are colorblind, and this is the way we talk or not talk about racism, because we can't see the colors. And still, I think that's kind of our generation, the pedagogic, how we grew up. And still, I have also friends in Germany who are like, no, but I learned I don't see colors, and that's the right way, So, is it also here in Denmark like this? And how or is it changing maybe? Is there a discussion?
I think there's definitely a discussion, and I don't know if I'm the right person to answer. Because yes, I'm white. But I think, like Ayub said, that there's changes. I also remember the Black Lives Matter demonstration in Copenhagen was huge, and there was how to say this. This remind me to say about the thing about language later,
Okay.
because there was a gathering in front, like there was a caravan going in front of the demonstration, and there was an invitation for black people to come to the front. Like, this is a demonstration for you, people come to the front. Like, we are, as I understood it, building this community, creating this space to be with others of the same color. And like, I was there, and most of the people, it was not a big issue. There was just like, the white people stepped a bit back. It was like maybe, like the space of this room was the front of the demonstration. So if you were like asked to step back, you were asked to step like 5 meters, 10 meters back. Not a big deal. And the media was outraged that like black people made this excluding behavior and like made it about themselves. Like, it was just, I think also, and this is regardless if it's whether it's about racism or sexism, like there's also the media benefits from enraging. And I think we need to like create conversations where we can meet each other with like the openness and the curiosity, rather than like believe everything you read on the internet. Don't.
No.
No, and the language thing was just, I don't have these conversations in Danish, and I think that means that I don't have the same emotional connection to it. And I think in the US and England, they're like Anglo-Saxon beneficial, like they benefit languagely. De har en sproglig fordel, okay? And I think in Germany and France, as I understand it, you're also like, the French are very good at speaking French. And I'm assuming, you please correct me, that they would have difficult conversation in French, and you said also in Germany you have them in German. And I would just be curious to hear about from other minority languages, because we're also a very international community. So if I insisted on having these conversations in English, I would exclude some of my close dance friends in Copenhagen. So, but it's, if you want to talk about these things in Danish, hit me up.
Yeah. We talked about it, and it's really interesting because in German we have words to talk about racism. We don't have to switch language just to talk about difficult
I
topics.
think it's specifically in the dance community.
Yeah. Okay.
That like it's a very English community for me. English speaking
Of
community.
course. Yeah.
But it creates this, I don't know, emotional detachment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and like.
Maybe I'm the only one.
Yeah, but because I often hear this argument of color blindness, and and somehow I try to explain, but that's a privilege. That's a privilege to say I can't see colors, you know, because of course you are not forced to see colors. If you are in the kindergarten, if you are in school, if you want to get a job, if you want to get a flat. But I know, since I can think, that I have another skin color. You know, I couldn't say I don't see them. You know, there was no possibility for that. So. Yeah, maybe sometimes when it's about the Lindy Hop community, I think we should talk more about the basics before we try to transfer it on the Lindy Hop scene. You know, I don't know. A few weeks ago, I just worked on the anti-racist book list, and so people who are really interested in this can just read books, because I really think maybe we should read more, you know. So because also when it's about these questions people sometimes ask me, I'm like, it's really, really good that people come to these talks, but I'm really sorry, but I can't do the work for you. I mean, I can take my time, I can explain something and stuff, but I can't do the work, you know. So I just can motivate you that you should do the part of the work you can do, you want to do. maybe, and then I thought, okay, maybe we just talk a bit more about books. Do you have Danish books about race? If you, yeah? No?
I don't know. The question was if the Danish had books.
No.
And we do. Yes. But on racism, anyone like Harrekilde?
Yeah, I have not really. I can come to you.
Thank you, Anna.
Hey, so we don't really have any relevant, as far as I know, books in Danish, but I can recommend something. I can recommend Elisabeth Løve Hunter. She's a family member of mine who's doing a PhD. She's Danish. She's doing it in California, and she's done some amazing articles. And I really hope that she'll do a book, because she's doing it on Danish racism, and in a Danish context, which is very different from what you say American context. And what is so interesting, I'm sorry to sort of be sitting with the back to you, but what is she recommends to read books from the Netherlands and from France because of colonialism. And since we were also in Denmark a slave nation for 250 years, we still have a very, very massive background of racism and of a relationship or like a hierarchical thing with colors in Denmark, that we are a very colorblind too. I was taught to be colorblind when I was in school. I was growing up. We were told that there was no difference between anything in colors, and of course we are both beautiful people, but of course the world sees you differently, which is a fucking shame, and that's why we need to talk about this. But you have different like life experiences than I do because of the color of your skin and because of the color of my skin. And the same goes for my sexuality. Like, it's just different. I see sexuality everywhere. But people, because mine is, I'm queer, and mine is different, right? So, and we also have the queer people smile. We do the same thing, so I totally relate. So not to take up much more time, but I really want to say we have to fight to have this on our curriculum in our schools, because we have 250 years of race history, of colonialism in Denmark, and it is not on our curriculum. We learn about the Second World War in the like in the small schools, but we do not learn about this, and this was much longer history, and it has affected us equally as much. And we need to do this, and we need to fight for this, and we need to tell our school teachers this, if you have kids, because it doesn't come from the politicians. It will only come from us. So we have to take that stand ourselves, basically. That's what I want to say.
I read two books that I think might be Danish. I will have to go home and double check. And one of them is more about minorities in general. It's called Ingen arm, ingen kager. No arms, no cookies. Which, basically means, of course, if you don't have the means, how can you even get a cookie? But that's just the title. I'll look into it and then maybe can post it somewhere on the event.
There's also, I think, there's right now a movie in the cinema called Viften about the Danish history of
I forgot to recommend. Thank you, Stine.
Yeah, you're welcome. And Anna Nye is the director of also wrote the script and is starring in it. And I think she's also the author of the book Hvor taler du flot dansk? Which is, oh, your Danish is so good. And she also, if the Danes here, anyone remember Normalerweise? That's Anna Nye, part of that comedic duo, really taking a very, more like, udstiller danskerne. Exposed, thank you. Exposing the Danes with sarcasm and humor, which, but it's like an old TV show. And then she wrote a book about her experiences.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, it's just like two weeks ago, that someone on the streets asked me, where can I get a good drink here in the city? And I was like, oh yeah, okay, you can go there and there. And the second question was, where do you come from? Germany? Yeah, but Like, really? Berlin. Yeah, but like, look how you look like. Where do you come from? Berlin. And I think he asked me 5 times. Like, really, like, I mean, and I mean, they don't ask the special question, like, what is the national background of your parents? That would be a special question which I could answer if I want to talk with a stranger after the second question about that, but okay. But this would be a special question I could answer. But like, the questions are not asked like this. It's more this, where do you come from? But then they don't accept the answer of Berlin. I was born in Berlin. I grew up in Berlin. Yeah, so I totally can relate to that. The point which I also wanted to make is maybe we should also talk a bit more about an intersectional view of our Lindy Hop community, because we have now this discussion about racism, about black people, how we can invite more black people in our scene. But like, also when you look old videos from the 20s, 30s, 40s, you can see how 2 men were dancing together, 2 women dancing together. So it wasn't that strict, that the man is leading and the woman is following. And somehow I got the impression that it's something we just are developing since a few years, that it's getting more and more normal. But still, if you go to big international festivals, it's not really seen as good if you have the big contests on big festivals, or?
I'm seeing a switch in that as well.
Yeah? Yeah. Cool. Yeah, like Victor, dancing both lead and follow, like there's definitely like a growth. And I think, can I just say, Anna asked before Isak and I did a beginner's workshop and a taster class in Welcome to Swing Dance Festival at this event, and just a beginner workshop, because Anna reached out and asked if we could model that both of us could lead and follow, and if we could model asking like how to ask for a dance without assuming. Mm-hmm. And I think it's very like, I think it's fair to say we're gonna make assumptions based on what's most normal for us, because that's also just how the brain is wired. The brain wants to take the most easy route. Yep. So if I've seen that like most of the men in the dancing community are able to lead and I prefer following, then I'm gonna assume that I can ask a man to lead and that'll be fine. But if I want to broaden that horizon, there are ways that I can use my language to kind of be less assuming. Mm-hmm. And I think with the the tie to that story was that I really appreciated Anna reaching out and asking me to do some of the work. And I think it's also an invitation that if you see something that you would like white people or straight people to do in your community, then I think there's many of us who we're grasping. Mm-hmm. We don't know how to do it because it's very easy to do shit wrong, and then it's shameful. But we would like to help, I think, and I think we'd like to do more than help. Mm-hmm. But also I think this whole, sometimes in these conversations it sounds as if the goal is to have more black people in our community, and if that was the goal, we could go and target advertise directly at black people. But if black people come to our community, or if queer people come to our community and they don't feel welcome, then it ain't shit. So I would much rather work on making our community more inclusive and more welcoming and have these discussions. And I think all of us are able to do different steps. whether it's reading books, being guest in another culture, like try house dancing and be the only white person in the room, or like whatever. like do these things to just like we're working on this together. It's like a plethora of actions.
Can I comment?
Yeah.
It's like a side note to your side note.
We're on a roll of side notes now. It's fine.
Yes, that's great. I love it.
Okay, this is basically just a recommendation because there's some research done by a Danish researcher at Aalborg University, and she basically does research. She just published a book I think about last year about like the everyday racism. Like her topic is basically like structural discrimination. So all the stuff that is not like outright racism, but like, you know, the hygge racism, or like on the structural levels where people, oh fuck, I was being racist, I really didn't mean to, but it's just wired because it's on the structural level, not on like an out front assault level. So I can really recommend her work, and she does like talks like in the media.
What's it called?
I can't remember her book. The author, she's called Mira Skadegaard. She does like talk in like the Debatten, I think it's called, and like she does like a weekly column and like it's a Berlingske or Politiken. She's really, I can recommend her work. She's done a bunch of articles. Her daughter as well. Her daughter she's living in the US now, doing research there. But she did a research in Danish on the topic of, I think it was racism in Danish television. So she was very reached out to in that case in December. She was like the go-to because she like researched this for like years and years before. And her name is Tess Skadegaard. So just in you know, recommended readables if you want that in like a Danish, very, very Danish context. I can recommend those two, Mira and Tess Skadegaard. So like it was a spin-off.
Yeah. Kom, Miri.
Yeah, I mean, I also wanted to say it's so important what you mentioned about this like intersection of, for example, also dance roles. I mean, just to give you an idea why it's important, like who's a man or male red person and started as a follower, raise your hand. Okay, that's no one person, yes. And who's like a woman or female red person and started as a leader? Yeah, okay, so you see the numbers, and that's really important to keep in mind that we may not do that on purpose, that if we go to somebody, but it's in our heads, it's a structure. Like, it annoys me when people go to me and they go like, kind of, do you want to dance? And they assume I'm a follower, but I've also done it. So I think that's the important thing, to be like, it doesn't have to be on purpose. Like, if it's, be it racism or just assuming somebody's dance role or gender role, but the thing is, even if it's not on purpose, it's hurtful. And I think it's also really great to hear that there's this conversation of how can we make it more open. And I mean, for example, the dance role, it's really simple to go to somebody, do you want to dance? Do you want to lead, follow, or switch? If you're only dancing one role, I would say don't feel bad, because often people go like, oh, but I only dance this. I'm like, yeah, but you're doing 50% of the dance. So, you know, like, take off the pressure. But I think then, for example, it's good if you're a guy and you're approaching a female red person, a woman, to go like, do you want to follow? Because then I can go like, no, I'm a leader. Or I go like, okay, I follow if you follow. So I think that's also something really important to keep in mind, to make it like more open and more enjoyable for everybody.
Thank you.
I love all your notes. It's so cool. So really feel free. If you have comments, come in front, or there's the box if you don't want to be here. Yes.
Olá, boa tarde. I wanted to ask you a question, actually. I'm from Brazil and I live in Aarhus, and maybe we can relate in some levels, and it's about tokenism. I think it's important to talk about that, and especially for our scenes when we are making events, and how do we invite people and not only inviting them to check a box and say, oh, I was inclusive because I invited these people to talk. So yeah, I wanted to hear a little bit about your experiences with it, and how can events, because I'm helping also, like sometimes organizing the events at Aarhus, so how can we make it, people feel they are actually part of it and not only checking the box. And I just want to share a story of the, not the Lindy community, I think Aarhus, we've been pretty, we've been improving a lot. It's a lot international, so I think we're doing a better job. Anyway, but it's about the samba community. As soon as I got to Aarhus, I was invited to be part of the samba group, because, oh, you're Brazilian, of course you know how to samba, and I'm like, well, I never tried, but I can try. So there is this like assumptions, and it was fun, but I felt a lot like the power structure, the people making decisions, they were all Danes. And the Brazilian people were there. I felt many times to make it, how to say, legitimized what they were doing. And it happened very much that, you know, in our culture, samba for us, it's like, there's so much social inequality, there's so much struggle, that when you go to samba, you just want to forget everything. You're not there to be trained. It's not a military training. It's not a thing that you have to, you know, unless you want to be a professional, whatever. So that's how the classes were taught a lot. You're here to 1, 2, 3, 4. And when Brazilian people and black Brazilian people stand up and said, maybe we should do it differently, you know, take it chill. We're here for something else, to be together and stuff like that. They don't know, this is how we do it here. This is how we want to learn and we want to dance. So the Brazilian people stopped going. So yeah, we felt a lot. There was a lot about tokenism, about like checking the box and legitimizing what they were doing. So I don't know if you experienced it, and how can the communities do something different to make it, yeah, so you feel part of it and not just a tick box.
Can I start with a little story again?
Yeah.
I love stories.
I know your stories.
So in front of the supermarket close to where I live, there's a homeless guy that sells these homeless papers, right? Or like, I don't know what it's called in English. And someone came out of the supermarket and was like, here's a coffee all black, and he left. And the homeless guy was looking at me and was like, I don't like black coffee. And I was looking and I was just thinking, how strange to just like think, you know, I'm helping you in the best way possible, and then leave without knowing anything about the person. And I think everybody can relate to, no matter what it is. Being heard is really important. So right now we have an important conversation about mainly, I guess, a lot of things, but also including black people, but maybe without hearing what the communities we're talking about want, in that sense, or would like. So I think it goes into what you asked about, having that talk about how we really want you to come to our event. How would you like that? Like, of course, it has these frames, but we're curious into knowing what would you like, you know, being heard in that sense, getting your opinion already from the get-go when you come makes it feels like, I'm a part of this, rather than I'm inviting you to dinner, we're all having our favorite dish, and you're like, it's nice, but it's not my favorite dish, right? And then you already feel a little bit excluded in that sense. So I think that's my personal opinion, because it's very hard to just make something for someone without knowing what that someone wants. And you can't just guess what other people want, and you can't just think that, oh, you're from Brazil, so of course this is what you like, right? Yeah. That's not how it works. Yeah.
I would I would say that we kind of reach the goal if the black persons who are on an event are not the persons who are also exposed on stage. So you are here as a teacher. I'm here for this talk. I've forgotten the name of the singer of the blues band. Trisha. Yeah, Trisha Boutte. Yeah, she's a singer. Yeah, Mito. Yeah, he's also teaching. So, but maybe when we have also just black people in the orga crew, if we have people as DJs, as the people behind, kind of, if it's just mixed. Because I know what you mean with the tokenism, because now sometimes I feel like, ooh, it's a trend. There is a train riding, you know, since the murder of George Floyd, there is a train riding, and also I got the impression that some organizers of events now have the pressure of, shit, we have to be on this train because if not, we are going down. Yeah. They lose people because also I got the experience that the participants, you have power. You have a lot of power because if you think of, okay, I want to go to this event, just text the organizers and be like, hey, do you have a culture talk? Do you have black DJs? Which people are on stage? Which people are doing music? Are they just white men? If yes, I won't come to your festival. If you don't have I also like at the snowball, people really like asked, do you have a culture talk? And when they said no, they were like, okay, then I don't go to the snowball, for example, you know. So there is a pressure for organizers to have something like this, and then it's really hard to go over the line of tokenism, you know, to not say, okay, we invite Momo because we heard of her and she has a exhibition and stuff. So, and then we invite Momo and make a check, you know.
Hi, I'm an organizer. No, like these are no, but it's so interesting because the same action can be perceived or like differently, or the same action can have vastly different intentions. So like having a culture talk at your event, if the intention is like, oh, we don't want to lose face, we don't want to like miss out, we don't want to, or if it's like, no, this is an important conversation that we want to facilitate at this event, how can we do it in a good way? And I was really nervous about this talk because I had no idea. I didn't know, and also I didn't know, like I've definitely also seen bad examples of culture talk where it becomes like, here's the black person telling about their experiences in life, which is a different setting, I would say, and I think it needs to be like, I don't know, I'm a community geek, I want it to be community based, and I want it to be invitational to the community and like give, like that we can kind of open the box and be like, what is it that we can do in this together? But it's definitely something that I remember last year for the Copenhagen Lindy exchange, this was after the pandemic break, and I'm gonna look at Sheila and you can be like, if there's anything that I was like, no! But we had some very explicit conversations about wanting to hire black people. Because there's also and it's at the risk of tokenism, right? But it's also, who do we want to give money to? And I think especially after a pandemic, it was like, last year, I don't think there was any negotiations with musicians trying to like bargain down. Like we had a Dusty Rag doing the parade, and they were like, doing a parade is a shit hard job. We want like full tariff. And previous years, back in the day, like the parade, many don't know this, but it kind of started spontaneously. Like we had a boat tour, and then musicians on the boat, and then like they were like, oh, we're walking somewhere. Why don't we play music while we walk? And it kind of just happened. And then as the event also has grown, it's become more like, actually, this is a super hard job, we would like to be paid. And it's like, of course, cool, yes, that makes sense. But also, and I had this very big wish that we had like a West African dance workshop, just to kind of like bring it here. And I'm still struggling with like how to do it how to not just be like, this is our favorite dish, please eat, kind of way. But also there was like a lot of negotiation. This was Alkali Kamada and his dance troupe that were here last year, Copenhagen based. So like if you're in Copenhagen, Alkali, and Mito is teaching with him right now. And it was like negotiating with them, being like, oh, so we'd like you to hire you to do a workshop at this event. This is how like the layout of our event. And we think it would be great to have like a daytime activity where people can come and learn some West African dance and kind of see, make the dance. And also, would it be possible for you to make a performance? Because kind of like showcase it to the people who didn't show up for the dance class and stuff, but like could we do a performance as well? And this is, if there's local organizers out there, you will know that some teachers or performers will have like, oh, if I'm to perform, that's an extra cost. And others are like, this is part of the price. This is like included. And it's difficult, it's different. But for Alkali, there was this great conversation because there were 5 drummers and 1 dancer, and they were like saying, oh, cool, if we are to do a performance, that's like a full tariff for each person for the performance. So that would be like another 12,000 Danish kroner. I'm just being very open about economics and right now, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, that's a lot of money for a performance. Looking at the budget, being like, so what type of performance are you thinking? They're like, well, we would need an hour. And I was like, oh, well, yeah, well, okay, so, okay. So, because in our community, performances are like 3-minute songs, done. That's it. And so to have this like, oh, glad we found this out before we put you on main stage at like 10 p.m. for an hour, surprise. And then we were like able to kind of, like, I felt like we had a good conversations where it was like, okay, so how can we make your performance adapt to the community that we have? And we landed, I think, like 40-minute seance in this room, where they got paid, of course. And it was just such a like interesting conversation to where it's like, I don't know what my point was. Can I just call it a story? Be like,
You want to say it?
I had one thing that awesome. Yeah, also, nice story, by the way. I like stories. Into that tokenism thing as well is also then when you have someone, let's say, for example, do a workshop. Now, I was lucky enough that I did a house workshop in a community that I already know, so I could just be like, cool, I'm here for the festival as well. There's live music dance. I was pretty happy about that. If I would have done a workshop in a community I don't know, and I'm saying this without knowing exactly how it's, so it's not targeted to you. It's just the general, yeah. Was I kind of informed about what is this and how does it work, and do I get invited to eat with the other artists and blah blah, all this kind of stuff where it feels like, okay, I'm actually a part of all of this and I'm not here for the workshop, and then good luck. If you want to stay, you can stay. If not, and then I tried that at other things, right? I'm like in a big room, and I was like, this is a nice thing. I think it's a party kind of vibe. I don't know. There's people eating food. I think I go home, you know, that like then you might end with that situation. And I think that's important when you think about how do I invite people without feeling that it's just a token thing. I think that's why I said this. Or that is why I said this. How do you make it so they feel included in the not necessarily the whole thing, but more than just when they were on stage in front of other people. If they were included in the other part, like, yeah, we had, like today we had breakfast, blah, 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 so on, I think that's a big part of it as well. So it's not just, I'm using you for this part.
I see you. I just want to, because I think, so this year I'm not part of the organizer group, but that means that I've had to kind of take all of the thoughts and experience in my head and like make it explicit to new people. And part of that has also been realizing that the way I've gone about organizing is thinking like I'm hosting a party and I'm inviting people and I want them to feel welcome. And that's regardless if it's like dancers buying a ticket or if it's DJs or performers or teachers. And like to have this kind of attitude is like I want to invite people to my scene, to my home, and show them and hopefully help them have a good time. And so with this kind of, I'm going to say ethos, with this ethos, Isak is like, yes. With this kind of ethos, it's like it makes it very easy to kind of transfer from like low-key like initiatives like, oh, cool, we have a room in this house where if people feel uncomfortable, I don't know if you know this, but if you needed a place to like stay and be quiet, because there's so many impressions and stimuli, like you can go to a quiet place because that's a way of showing care for your community. And yeah, I think, yeah, that was the thing. And now,
there was a question,
yes,
right?
yes, or a comment.
Thank you. I just wanted to share a little thing that you said just before about like us participants taking responsibility to like encourage and so on. We are trying one thing at the moment in our dance scene in Gothenburg, which is because we have a stipend, like we give money to our teachers, like instead of salary, let's say. Yeah, because it's often like in all communities, the teachers, which is probably travel a lot because they are like dancing and etc. So now we're trying a thing to like encourage our teachers when they're going out to different events to like look at the event and see if they have a code of conduct or if they talk about the history on the website. And if they don't, they can just, or if the event doesn't do that, they can just send an email to the board of the association, and then we send a mail which is like, hi, our teacher want to come to your event, which is amazing, but how do you think about this? Because we see that this is a good thing to take care of, and so on. And I guess it's a tricky one, because it's like you don't want to be the one who is like pointing at someone else's event, because that's not nice, of course, but it's like a little way of showing like, oh, okay, maybe we can talk about this and maybe it helps others too. I don't know, yeah, when you said about the taking responsibility, thinking about that, oh, we're trying this, and we haven't done it for so long, so I don't really know the result for long now, but just a thought.
Oh yeah, can I say a short thing to that? It was just that in the hip hop community, a group took initiative to instead of, because sometimes it can be hard to like point at other groups. They were like, we have like this conduct and we do this and that, and then they invited the other groups in the city of Copenhagen, actually all of Denmark, for the big groups that. Yeah, because it's not like, I don't know if in some areas they didn't know about someone and that they weren't invited, right? So it's all of Denmark, but it's not perfectly all of Denmark. And then my group also got that message, yeah, we have this meeting and this is what we do, and then everybody who's agreed could like sign, and then in the end there would be this piece of paper where it's like there's a bigger unity around it in some sense, and yeah, I really liked that. It was an easier way, I think, to get more people on the boat, so to say.
Yeah.
Oh, there was another one, right?
I think Anna first and then Maria.
It was on tokenism. We don't have to do it.
But
Yeah, I just really like the thing about tokenism, because I also struggle with this sometimes, right? I really ponder it a lot. And I am thinking that I used myself as a token in the in the mix and match competition, for instance, to be the only female lead. And I deliberately chose to lead, even though I wasn't really sure that I actually wanted to do it. But maybe it is, being the only or inserting yourself in or being invited to something, even if it's a token, maybe it's a way of moving, pushing something in some direction. What do you think about this?
It's in German. I'm really sorry for you, but we have a really interesting professor in Osnabrück, Aladdin Elmer Fa'alani. Yeah, some people know him. He's really great, and he also wrote interesting books. And this is the discourse he's talking about the tokenism that on one hand it feels it doesn't feel really good to be a token because you kind of feel exposed, naked, used, and on the other hand, it shows that how there was a development in the society, because before, 30 years, you couldn't imagine that there is a pressure to have at least one black person or one person with I don't know which background, or one queer person, or one whatever, woman. So that we have this tokenism, it shows that it's a good development, because there is now a pressure in the society that it's not okay if we have talk shows just with white men, So, and that's just one of the first steps. Of course, we have all like the big goal that at the end we don't need tokenism, because we just have different people talking with each other, where everyone is represented. But tokenism is also kind of good, and now it's cool, because like I said, sometimes I also feel like a token, and then I think, okay, then I use my power. And try to start a development, or start a conversation, a discussion, and hopefully when I do a good job, then it gets bigger and bigger, So I know what you mean. So tokenism also brings stuff to push it forward. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and I think it's also about how it's used in that sense, right? Because if you decide to do that, then obviously it's a good cause, and your choice in that sense. There was a very big famous hip hop competition for many years, from the early 2000s to it just ended 2 years ago, called Just Debout from France, and it was international. And 1 year, it was I think that was when it was really about we need more female in hip-hop, judging stuff. And Just Debout had 3 female judges. There's always 3 judges. And it was whoa, next year back to men. And then it was like that. That's really bad tokenism, in that sense, right? Because it was just used as a checkbox. I think if it's consistent, and if it has some sort of development and shows something good, then it can be powerful instead, right, and helpful.
Maria, did you have a question?
Yeah, and I'm multitasking.
Well, first of all, thank you for sharing your experience. I think it's really cool that you do it. Thank you. Second of all, English is not my first language. So if I am not being understandable, there's a Swedish guy over there that knows me, and maybe he can translate what I'm trying to say. But I was thinking about what you said at the beginning, well, at least when I arrived, about blackface, and I was thinking about tokenism, and I think in our Lindy Hop community, especially in my case, I commit tokenism with all clips. So because it's super easy, like, no, we are not racist because we look, I don't know, I know Al means and Leon James Shim Sham version, or I am trying to look like Al means when I'm dancing, right, or whatever. And I, as you were talking about clips, I love cinema, and I think they were forced to do some faces, for example, without blackface. In some clips they were forced also to wear blackface, but it's like they were doing blackface without blackface. And then you go as a white people with no fucking knowledge about that and you start to put faces. And I don't know, because I am not black, but if I see that, that will make me feel like, oh, he's trying to like I don't know, like being black without blackface. And I see a lot of that stuff in our community because it's based in a tokenism related to all clips, right? That they had to be forced to do some faces. Yeah. So I'm struggling with this because I'm an old clip fan. I really like to go back always. But also it's like, okay, how we can do this without trying to emulate an image of black that we have in our mindset because of our education and whatever, when we are dancing, when we are performing. And the only answer that I have now is like, okay, we have to listen to black people, actually. They still dance that. Yes. And you were
never stopped.
Exactly, you were in another part of the world, okay, cool, but they dance like Lindy Hop, vernacular Lindy Hop. Mm-hmm. So I don't know what you think about blackfacing without blackface. That would be my topic.
I think I was thinking actually earlier. I'm just gonna connect it to something again. That's my style, I guess now. When we talk about the revival and everything, in where it's easy for me to combine with something is again where I've been using more time in the hip hop community, where first I learn something and I think there's like, okay, this is how it works. And then the deeper I go into it, I'm like, okay, there's the style from Washington, there's the style from New York, there's the style from here, there, and that. And there's so much different that you need to dive into. And I remember there is this style called locking, where there's like one person and his crew, and it's similar to the revival of Lindy Hop in some sense. Some people like, yeah, and this style, and they learn it. And everybody danced locking that way. And then I was lucky, I saw some people who did it in a totally different way. I was like, what's that? It's like, it's locking, it's London style locking, which was also from the States, but there's a long story about that. And I was so amazed, and I was so, even a little bit like frustrated that why is it only one way? And I think, from what I understand, and I'm not super strong in this area now, so please correct me, is that then with Frankie Manny and his group is also perhaps, I guess, one group that does it one way. Yeah. What about all the other groups? Who are they? And like, so reviving a type of style of a bigger style, right? And I think it's important for people to remember and not, of course it's amazing and he's amazing and stuff like that, but don't make one way the right way in that sense. And so to answer that question, I think it's very important to be very broad about it in every sense. So also knowing the videos are one thing, but maybe there's some groups that are still alive. If you travel, you might be able, if you research, you might be able to find someone and you will see, well, they don't smile like this when they dance, or they don't do it in that way, and they don't do it in a certain way. And I think that's important to connect it like that. That's a hard question to answer. I hope it made sense.
Yeah, and I think you should, or everyone should have in mind that what we can see in video clips is not really how Lindy Hop was danced, you know, because this was a really big possibility for black people. How I said, we had the segregation laws, so black people were nearly invisible in the society, in open spaces, you know, and so that they had this culture, this dance of Lindy Hop, and that they were so good that also the white film industry was interested in that. So they really prepared a hell for these videos. So if we watch the videos, we just see this one side, you know, of the dance. I mean, there's also some videos of just clubs, how they were dancing, like when they are just in their community, feeling good, being relaxed, you know. But yeah, at least when we really watch the videos like Harrekilde Poppen or the races, they really prepared themselves a lot to show them, you know, I think this is also a really important thing. And then like always when white people try to copy black people.
No, say it. I mean, it's that.
It's near to the discussion of color blindness, and then I say, okay, now the trend is having curly hair, but I mean, yeah, okay, cool. Now the trend is having curly hair, but you can say, okay, today I want to have curly hair, tomorrow not. However, I can't choose it. I have my hair like this, and then there are strange people just in the public transportation where, I don't know, I feel somehow a hand like here, and I'm like, what? So this is the difference. You can go in a how you say, a solarium? Spa, yeah. However, to get your skin a bit darker, but you can choose it. You can choose it, and nobody, just after you went to that spa, nobody would come to you every fucking day and say, where do you come from? You know? Ah, great. Okay, nice. We won 10 minutes more, so give everything you can. You first, and then you.
Hi, I never like to reply to your thing because it's a really good question, a good thing you had there. Talking about blackface without blackface. We all know Louis Armstrong. Dizzy the Gillespie didn't really like him because he ran the white man's business. Whenever you see a picture, and I won't show it because I'm white, so I won't show it. But when you see Louis with an open mouth and a trumpet up there, it was for selling pictures and selling magazines. You never saw Dizzy, as far as I know, smile, because he didn't want to go the white man's errand. Secondly, a day at the races. You go down men's and you see the up front picture. He's doing like that with the finger and open mouth. I think the American slang what is called mocking. I'm not sure, but I think that's the word. But that's definitely blackface without being blackface. So he shows off for the camera and doing his face with the finger in the air. And that's not the only scene. I think there is one more scene than that. So thank you for bringing out that being blackface without being black in the face. So, yeah.
Well, there's, I mean, related to Day at the Races, there's an author called Corin Willis, and he called that kind of image minstrelization.
Yeah, the minstrel shows.
Yeah, because the people were like trying to like.
Well, I have also a really strong voice, but no, I was related today at the races. There are two shots, I think, of black faces really first, like really close, and there's an author called Corinne Willis, and he called that kind of image minstrelization shot, because the movie industry were trying to, like put the black image in the box, like in the 19th century box, with that kind of gestures, So that was the thing.
Hi, my name is Cecilia. I'm from Stockholm, so talking from a Stockholm perspective, perhaps. But I'm a history major, so people come to talk to me about history a lot, and in the Stockholm scene as well. And one thing I've noticed is talking about checking boxes is that people, especially a couple of years ago when I started dancing Lindy Hop, talked a lot about showing appreciation to the elders and like talking about where your inspiration comes from and referring to old clips and things like that, and that's really important. Like, I'm biased, I love history, and history is super important, but also sometimes I feel like history and the history of racism is used to check the box, to not talk about racism in our community today. Yes, because when we talk about racism in history, we put it far away from ourselves, and we can say like, oh, it was so bad back then. But we still managed to check the racism talk or the culture talk or whatever we did. So, like, even though I'm history biased, I think that I really appreciated you keeping the history talk very short to focus on on today. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm often also thinking about, like, I'm just writing my bachelor thesis, and it's about white fragility.
What does that mean?
White fragility is the reaction of white people when they are confronted with racism, when they are told, like, hey, that was not cool, that I received it as kind of racist, like, for example, this man 2 weeks ago who asked me in the second question, where you come from? I mean, I could have answered, should we talk about the racist structures you have maybe in mind, that you think that it's okay to ask me this question, and also that you think, okay, maybe she has to have a different background because she looks like this. So which racist structures you have inside yourself that you, because would you ask me this way when I would be white, and having this, and often you can observe how people get how you say, like, putting a wall, defensive, being defensive, and say like, no, I'm just interested. I just want to get to know you. You don't even know my name. But your second question is where you come from. Okay. When you say that, or sometimes people get aggressive. What? No, me being a racist? No, never. And then just go away because they feel so attacked that I said it, Also
sad sometimes.
Yeah.
Centering our own.
Yeah. So these are all strategies to not talk about racism. Because then it's more about how the white person feels that he or she was confronted with racism, or that they had do something racist, you know? And then it's more about all the feelings and thoughts white people have than talking about the topic, you know? And this is also what I can observe in my studies, and also when I have lectures like this. And I don't know how we can come behind this white fragility, you know? There is a book, Robin DiAngelo, read it. It's called White Fragility.
You had a question?
I just had a question. So how would the best reaction be? Like, how would you feel most honored in this situation where you were saying, hey, this is hurting me?
Could you repeat the question to the microphone?
Yeah.
I don't know if it's an answer for that. I just remember something similar. There was a picture of a broken egg, and the first thing was, "Oh, but I didn't mean to," and the second thing was something like, "Oh, but I never," and then the last thing was like, "I broke the egg." You know. So first and foremost is also, you know, be open for that and be like, you know, willing to understand, I guess, in the sense, and realize, okay, I didn't have that intention, but I'm ready to hear what I did wrong in that sense. Oh, I understand, something went wrong. Yeah, I don't know if that's a perfect answer, but yeah.
So I just wanted to comment on this because, what I've obviously felt this, like and we talked about it a bit earlier as well. I think the fact that the discourse around racism has ended up being about, are you a good person or a bad person, is part of the sort of structural problem, right? Because the reaction you get, for me at least, is this visceral feeling of wanting to run away whenever I sort of confront myself with like experiencing racist thoughts or just doing something hopefully unintentionally, and I'm hearing this reaction, right? And this visual, I want to run away and I don't want to be seen as this bad person, and that's sort of the fact that it has become a sort of moral question in this sense means that all the structural things go away, right? And sort of getting past that and confronting it and saying the fact that we live in a racist society and have all these racist structures and it happens all the time, like, you're a bad person if you don't confront it and don't deal with it. You're not a bad person because you have these thoughts, because everyone have them. Like, it's something we've grown up with, and it's not necessarily our fault, but it's our fault if we don't react to it. And that is fucking hard.
Yep.
But I think that's sort of part of also the what the question before, what's the right reaction is. What I'm trying to do at least is to acknowledge this and say, oh fuck, I fucked up. How can I do better the next time? And yeah.
What I would like to say, maybe at the end, because the time is, I think, nearly over. You said it's hard to confront yourself with this, and I understand it totally. I mean, I'm reading books, I'm writing about this topic, so I can relate to that somehow. But always think of it's always harder for black people to handle racism than for you to confront yourself with racism and your racist thoughts, images, whatever. Yeah. So, you want to say something, or we just, because I think we just had 2 hours, two really interesting hours. I'm so thankful that you that you had questions, that you came up here talking with us. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.